In a world where insanity reigns supreme and safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, it's comforting to know an ancient, fat, long-haired, bearded reprobate has your mind in mind. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, and despite every attempt by the SHR Media Network to revoke his shameless contract, we return to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon.
You're listening to Late Night Radio on the SHR Media Network. Caution, there will be mature themes explored and potentially adult language used. If conservatarian words, phrases, certain concepts, or rhetoric offends you, tune out now.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is? Guess what day it is?
I know, I know.
Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike?
Oh, you magnificent bastard, I read your book.
I drink your milkshake.
How dare you?
I call that bold talk for a one-eyed fat man.
Fill your hand, you son of a bitch!
Of course you realize this means war.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
It is Thursday. It is December the 17th. Christmas is next week. The year of our Lord 2020. Just when you thought you could get rid of 2020. Well, we're not that far. But wait. 2021 is in the wings. And if you think 2021 is going to be significantly better than 2020, boy, have I got a thing for you. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, where I am broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, always spelled with a K, a mere 2 miles east of the locus of evil on the entire left coast, the Bill Mill, the belly of the beast, the Capitol building in downtown Sacramento at 10th and L Streets. And at the end of the show, when I exit the plush, resplendent, sumptuous, and palatial SHR Media studios, I'll be smelling the odoriferous stench of sulfur, brimstone, and evil emanating from downtown Sacramento. Be forewarned. What you're about to hear for the next 2 hours consists of my opinion and my opinion only. Fear porn, as we know, has gripped the nation. But the Saloon is still serving stiff drinks, fact, history, logic, rationality, proportion, context, tradition, intent, and common sense right inside. Plus, now I have declared the Saloon an autonomous zone. So remember, we don't water our drinks just like we don't water our conversation. Politics, religion, crime, culture, race, sex, science, economics, law. We talk about it all right here at the Saloon, where the speech is free, but the booze is not. It's 2020. And I am done with bipartisanship and compromise, like I hope you are. So this is going to be, for me at least, an ass kicker of a night. Because I have to coordinate 3 interviews and a video that I just came across that I had my wife save on another video platform because I think this is going away. Now, I don't think everybody's heard this, I'm going to play this after I talk to my first guest. I should make everybody wait until the end. And maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll play the video, which is you'll hear the audio only of it. But then you'll think, how is this guy getting away with saying that? And why isn't this removed from YouTube, Facebook, Google, Twitter, blah, blah, blah? Well, maybe it will be, but that's why I've got it immured in another format so that if they take it all away, BZ the fat guy still has this. And at the end of the video, you'll probably say something similar to, I don't get it. The information is right there. It's available for us to listen to see. This guy is available to put in front of any kind of a hearing. Nobody wants to know about it. Nobody wants to see it. Nobody wants to hear it at all. Hey, welcome to Simone Says in chat. Welcome to Sergeant Booker in chat. Welcome to the Alaskan in chat. 3 viewers. So anyway, I should say in this order, this is how we'll have our guests. Dr. Michael Jones will be here first, and I'm going to talk to him in just a few seconds. We're going to talk about constitutional issues. Gabrielle Ingram will be up next after Dr. Michael Jones. And finally, we'll wrap with Susan Katz-Keating, a journalist that I've had on the show before. She's going to weigh in on journalists, and she also has some very interesting information about the DOD and another event that occurred in Havana, which I thought was really... Hey, Dave, welcome to chat, which I thought was very interesting. And then we'll hear the video that I was telling you about. I'm suspecting, I just want to let you know up front. You like my headgear, by the way? It is timely. I want to let you know up front that I'm probably going to go into overtime. So, space your electric winkle chamber breaks accordingly. Go get some popcorn. I recommend an adult beverage of your favorite kind. Light the fire, sit in front of it, put on your headphones. By the way, my show is best listened to with headphones. And the reason I say that is because I have a wonderful mic and I'm broadcasting through Spreaker nice and clear. Everybody here at SHR has worked long and hard to make sure that our sound is the best, and we have great sound here. So, Dr. Michael Jones, are you there, sir? Do you happen to be there? Okay. That's funny. I told this to Gabrielle. There, okay. I told this to Gabrielle. The first time I call somebody, invariably, it doesn't work. The second, there we go. Now it's working. The second time I call somebody, it works. Why that is, I do not know. Anyway.
This was my fault.
No. Oh, was it? Okay.
At 10 o'clock, I have an automatic silent the phone thing on my iPhone. Oh. And so, because you call with no caller ID, it doesn't know you're a VIP.
Okay.
So it just silently sent you the voicemail, and I looked over and saw it and went, uh-oh. Ah!
Hey, Dave Miller is in chat. He said, my show is best listened to with earplugs. Wow. Ouch, Dave.
Yes.
Ouch, Dave.
Yes.
Ouch.
And for insomniacs.
Yeah. The reason I wanted to talk to you tonight is I've had you on any number of times before, and for quite some time, you literally have been not just a constitutional scholar, but in a way, the constitutional scholar. You had a show called The Underground Professor, in which your duty was essentially to spiff people up and educate people about the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, federalism, all sorts of aspects about American history, but predominantly dealing with our foundational documents. And if I'm not mistaken, each show that you had as the Underground Professor, and boy, would I like to start that up with you and address just one topic for a night. But you gave basically courses in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights with every show. and you had a remarkable following. And I don't know if you're going to bring that back. Maybe yes, maybe no. But you are clearly the go-to guy in terms of constitutional issues because of your training, your education, and your experience. So before we get into these issues, I know I've asked you this before, but I like to affirm your CV so that people know that when they're listening to you, you are in fact a constitutional scholar and you're talking, you know what you're talking about. So, Dr. Michael Jones, can you tell people a little bit about your education and its focus and why it is that you may know a thing or two about the Constitution?
Well, let's see. I got my degrees from several universities. I've gone to colleges all around the world, from Japan, Germany, England, America, several different states. Acquired lots and lots of student loans.
Yeah.
And, go Biden. Get rid of my student loan. But I was also in the military, a military brat. Been all over the world. I've seen most countries and most of the states. And so I know, like, for instance, when someone says what poverty really is, I know what it really is. Mm-hmm. I've seen it. I've been in it. The middle class in this, or the people on welfare in this country would be considered upper middle class in most countries. So go figure. But let's see, CV wise, I've studied and worked on several different degrees in college for my PhDs in philosophy, history, political science, and theology. Those are my interests, and I just keep taking course after course. I'm ABD, of course, so but I've got more hours than most people have in college, and the debt to prove it. But, plus, all my reading and everything is about this stuff. My pleasure reading is studying the founding documents, the 4 founding documents, in my opinion: the Articles of Confederation, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, with the Bill of Rights. I don't separate them, and the Northwest Ordinance. So those are the documents of our founding. The Bill of Rights, I think, is misnamed. It makes it sound like it gives people rights when it does not, and people often don't realize that when Obama claimed that the Constitution was full of negative rights, what he was trying to say was negative rights for rulers, not for the sovereigns of this country, not for us. That we were limiting the people that we chose to hire to lead us because we're a republic. We're not a democracy. I can't stand the word democracy. The founding fathers are spinning in their graves every time someone uses the word democracy, and there's enough spinning to generate electricity for the entire nation, I think, off of their spinning in their graves. But anyway, we're a constitutionally federated republic.
Yep.
Each word has a meaning to describe our country and its government. To add a word to constitutionally federated republic is to overdo what kind of country we have. And to cut a word is to diminish it to the point of no value. Because if you just say we're a constitutional republic, then you've lost half of what we are as a country. And, if you say we're just a republic, I guess you can say that as a shorthand thing. But if you're describing to somebody what kind of government we have, we're not a democracy. The founders would have considered that mob rule, and they went out of their way to make sure we weren't a democracy. And you can see this on every person who goes on a talking head show. they're all talking about, on left or right, they're all talking about the burdens on democracy with this voter fraud. And, it's not a burden on democracy. And, in fact, if we were a democracy, I bet you we wouldn't have had to have voter fraud. But because if we were a democracy, then the majority would get their wish. And because it only takes 51% or 50 plus 1 to get your way in a democracy. And since Democrats breed so prolifically and have so many more registered voters, they would win every election if we were a democracy, which is one of the reasons why there was a separation of power between the sovereigns and the government, which was the Electoral College, etc., and why it's so important. And I don't think anyone can deny that the Electoral College has come into deep, deep play here in the 2020 election. I'm like Scotty on Star Trek. When he goes on vacation, he brings technical manuals to study. So that's me. But but documents of the revolution and stuff. I'm a big fan. And when I studied the Revolutionary War, as we call it, I actually studied it from the perspective of the War of Insurrection, which is what the British call it. So I studied our revolution from their point of view, not ours. Because when you get into our points of view, everybody's a hero on our side, and we were all right and righteous, and God did basically everything for us because we are pure and puritanical. But the other side doesn't feel that way too much, and they have some good points also on our open rebellion. So that's why one of the reasons I think I had such a huge following of people in England is because
really.
I had a huge. They were my second largest audience after America. England and Australia and Japan. Those were the three below America. But I had a huge following in England, and the emails I got made it clear that they were impressed that a Yank would know the difference between the War of Insurrection and the Revolutionary War. And I told them I was not impressed that they couldn't tell the difference between a Yank and a Southern boy. But but anyway, is that enough?
That's.
I was a professor also.
That's pertinent.
At Tarrant County College.
Okay.
And I taught Texas history and Texas government, and then U.S. history and U.S. government. So I was dual qualified to teach those 4 courses. And they're in 2 different departments. One's a history department, one was political science department. So for the price of one, they got a professor that could teach in 2 departments. And, let's see. I've been on lots of TV shows back in the 90s. And then I did the radio show, of course, where I had tens of listeners. And and then I've been a guest on many shows over the years, and there you go. I guess that's it. I don't know what else to say.
What I'd like to do tonight,
and I love dogs, cats.
Oh, yeah. It's funny you should say that. Sometimes you have to take a break from politics, and just to let everybody know, next week I'm going to do a show. Probably a good half hour, maybe an hour, on just dogs, on just animals, and what pets are like in our lives. Because you probably don't know, folks, but my life has changed quite a bit, and I found 2 dogs that have changed it. I'll get into it, but when I have that show, I'd like everybody to call because everybody has a dog story. Everybody likes dogs or cats. Ken McClinton, you may or may not know, Dr. Michael Jones, he has a new cat.
Jacob.
Yeah.
Jacob. Yes.
So he has
His
fallen.
Cat and mine have colluded to take over the world.
He's fallen all over Jacob. I haven't seen a guy go crazy over an animal like Jacob in a long time. He'll frequently sit on his show, etc. Ken McClinton has a show that I'm on, folks, every Monday night, TECN TV with Ken McClinton, the Exceptional Conservative Network. And I'm on there every Monday night right around 7:15 Pacific, right around in there, to the end of the show until about 8. In any event, Dr. Michael Jones, what I wanted to see if I could talk to you tonight about were these specific issues. I wanted to talk to you about the Texas election case that went to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court said essentially, no, you know what, we declined to hear that case. So I want to talk to you about that and why some of the things may be that, why did they decline it? Why did they refuse to hear the case? The other thing that I want to talk about that's the real, boy, these are triggering, of course, right now for leftists and snowflakes, et cetera, is, okay, what happened December 14th with the electors? I'd like to talk about that. I'd like to talk about what is coming on January 6th, if I'm not mistaken. What is happening on the 20th and how these dates build in terms of certifying a president, certifying a presidential election. So that's what I hope to accomplish the rest of this hour tonight with Dr. Michael Jones. So first, last Friday, almost a week ago, well, it'll be a week ago tomorrow, the Supreme Court decided that it was going to decline to hear that Trump-supported Texas case over election results in 4 other states. Now, it was facing an uphill battle. A lot of people were saying, most of those people were on the left, Democrats and the leftists and the American media maggots were saying that the Texas case was flawed in several ways and that it was likely to fail. So they declined to hear it. They denied that Texas effort on Friday, which would potentially have nullified the presidential elections in 4 states: Pennsylvania, Michigan, Georgia, and Wisconsin. Those are 4 of the about 6 or 7, I believe, contested states where allegations are being made, and to me they're rather clear, of voter fraud. I'll get into that on a different show. But tonight I just want to look and examine the constitutional issues behind that. So the Supreme Court's order reads, the state of Texas's motion for leave to file a bill of complaint is denied for lack of standing under Article 3 of the Constitution. Texas has not demonstrated a judicially cognizable interest in the manner in which another state conducts its elections. All other pending motions are dismissed as moot. Then it went on to say, the order does not foreclose any other pending or future election appeals at the Supreme Court, but the time is in fact running out. Now, the states have met on December 14th, this past Monday, for the electoral college. Well, maybe it was electrical. I mean, they turned on the lights, okay? For the electoral college exercise. And so first, let's go back. And when you explain things, you tend to make things that are complicated and seemingly Machiavellian seem a lot more logical, much more so than I could ever hope to do. So, Dr. Michael Jones, constitutional expert, what are your thoughts or opinions about SCOTUS denying the case and refusing to hear the case almost a week ago, this coming Friday?
Well, there's a lot there
to
unpack. But let me just say simply that I believe that they're cowards and that they do not have a constitutional right to not hear an original jurisdiction case between 2 states. And I believe that Clarence Thomas and
Alito
would agree with me, and Thomas Sowell maybe. Thomas Sowell. He's not a Supreme Court justice. Never mind. He would agree with me, though.
No, but
he's
a smart dude.
Yeah, he is. Boy, I tell you, I had a talk with him once and told him that if I had in the whole world anyone I could trade brains with, it would only be his. Because I'm pretty sure his is the only one smarter than mine. And he laughed and said, "No, you couldn't get a 5-cent refund on my brain." But so he's a hoot. But anyway, I think they're cowards. They don't have a right to not hear an original jurisdiction case. They sit up there and they do all kinds of activism without any qualms, and I'm talking about all of them. Mm-hmm. But when it actually comes to something the Constitution says they're supposed to do, they find reasons not to do it because they're afraid of social unrest. They're afraid of people picketing their homes or threatening their families, which has all been going on. They're all getting it. You'd better vote this or else, and but there was even deeper intrigues. Now there's talk that Byers and Roberts were in collusion together to prevent Trump from becoming president if it got to the Supreme Court, and that their two votes, sunk the battleship here, keeping it from going. There is another fact that let me say it this way: the Supreme Court denied hearing the case, not the merits of the case, just simply not granting certiorari, which was the threshold that a number of justices had to vote in order to hear the case. I think it's 4. And they didn't want to hear the case, so they all voted against it, with 2 dissenting on that vote. But the grant of certiorari means that they'll hear the case and then weigh on the merits. You don't, which is confusing to me. Now, let me restate that again. If a judge or justice hears a case, he or she is expected to hear it and then weigh in on it to make a decision. Why else go to a judge? You don't go to King Solomon and have him split the baby, for sport. You go there for his judgment and his wisdom and to make a decision, and then everybody moves on. And that's what we want. There's 74 million Trump voters and allegedly 78 million or so Biden voters. And I say allegedly. But and that's another show, of course. But if this doesn't get settled economically, then our country is at peril. On one hand, we have the Republic at stake, and on the other hand, we have civil unrest at stake. So they decided not to hear it. Let me finish that up real quick.
Okay, sure.
And they used legalese, like lawyers, which is why lawyers and politicians, especially lawyers that are politicians, are hated so much in this country. They used legalese to say that Texas did not use the right language in petitioning the court for the hearing. Okay? There's like one word that if they didn't use it, then it would have been acceptable. But because of the way they structured the relief or something of it, which would be to overthrow the election. And they didn't want to have their hand in on that. And, of course, they did not weigh in on the merits of what it is. But they came out with something very strange. They said that the state of Texas did not prove that it had standing in court also.
Yes.
And that means that they weren't an injured party in this case. Now, Texas argued that we have standing because all the voters of Texas are being hurt by the voters of, say, Pennsylvania, which violated their own constitution and violated the statutory laws of the legislature that had been passed on election laws. And since they violated it, then that corrupted the election. And if you corrupt your election in your state, then you affect the election in our state.
Yes.
Because, okay, and that just seems to make sense, doesn't it? You don't need that explained. If one of the states in our countries is a state, but if one of the United States is corrupt and fraudulent in the election, then it waters down and demeans all the other voters in all the other states. So of course we have standing, and of course we can show that we are harmed, and of course original jurisdiction is required by the Constitution for the Supreme Court to hear. It's why they made the Supreme Court. It's just right there in the Constitution. Article 3. Why does a court exist? Well, for original jurisdiction, the disputes between the states and trade. And there's things in the Constitution that say that you can't put tariffs on states or tax truck drivers coming from Texas into Oklahoma, or vice versa. And so they have the courts here to settle arguments so that we don't have to go to war to settle an argument.
Dr. Michael Jones,
trade or whatever.
Can I interrupt you here for just a second? I want to play about a 2-minute break here. Go to the break. They're much shorter these days than they were. It's a good time to go to the bathroom if you need to, folks. When we come back, Dr. Michael Jones, you mentioned something that I wasn't going to address tonight, and you brought it up. So since you brought it up, I'll go there since I have a little bit of information on that. And with that teaser, I just want to let folks know we'll be right back after this, okay? Don't go anywhere.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, are you guys listening? This is Shannon from Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM on SHR Media. I know you've been wondering where we are and what's been going on. Well, folks, that's right. We're back. So please join us 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday on SHR Media, on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and Spotify, and Facebook Live at 11 a.m. on Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM at Facebook. You don't want to miss a minute. We've got lots of guests, lots of segments, and lots of interesting things. And let's face it, there's nowhere for you to go, so you might as well tune in. Again, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. We're back live on the air on SHR Media, 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday, audio and Facebook Live, audio and video. Yes, we are going to do video. Facebook Live, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. Hope to see you soon.
Unleashed Jeremy Hansen, the most explosive pro-American podcast on the planet. Pro-MAGA, pro-Trump, pro-conservative. Come join the resistance. Fight for what really matters in America. 5 p.m. Central on UJHLive.com, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Pandora, or MAGAbook.com. Come join the resistance and fight for America. Unleashed Jeremy Hansen.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And we are back. I'm BZ. This is BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show for the first hour. We are talking to Dr. Michael Jones, a constitutional scholar. And we were talking about SCOTUS's refusal to hear the Texas case. And essentially, Dr. Michael Jones said, I think basically they didn't do their job. So you brought up an interesting point about Roberts. And I don't know how specious this was, but now there seem to be some gates opening in terms of Roberts and what's been going on. Lynn Wood said out a tweet that said, in discussing real Donald Trump in phone conversations in 8/19, Justice John Roberts stated that he would make sure the motherfucker would never be reelected. Roberts engaged in phone conversations with Justice Stephen Breyer discussing how to work to get Trump voted out. You can believe that, or perhaps you don't believe it. Now,
Ken asking me?
Well,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, Ken McClinton talked about that this past Monday night and said that he had, Ken McClinton, by the way, folks, is another talk show host who is in D.C., and Ken has access to a whole bunch of people that know a whole bunch of stuff. Well, now the information that Ken had, I'll reveal to you because it came out. And you again mentioned this, so I will go there. Loud arguments in U.S. Supreme Court chambers over Texas lawsuit. Court intimidated, meaning SCOTUS was intimidated.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is by a guy named Hal Turner. He said, this article was previously locked and for subscribers only. It's been unlocked at the personal request of Steve Quayle from a source deep inside the U.S. Supreme Court as they discussed the pending Texas lawsuit against Pennsylvania et al. He said, Hal, as you know, I'm a clerk for one of the justices on SCOTUS. Today was like nothing we've ever seen. The justices are arguing loudly behind closed doors. The justices met in a closed and sealed room, as is standard. Usually it's very calm, but today we could hear screaming all the way down the hall. They met in person because they didn't trust telephonic meetings as secure. Chief Justice Roberts, he specifically notes, was screaming, "Are you going to be responsible for the rioting if we hear this case? Don't tell me about Bush v. Gore. We weren't dealing with riots then. You're forgetting what your role here is, Neil," meaning Neil Gorsuch, "and I don't want to hear from the two junior justices anymore. I will tell you how to vote." Justice Clarence Thomas said, "This is the end of democracy, John." And they left the room. Roberts, the Libs, and Kavanaugh had big smiles. Alito and Thomas were visibly upset. Amy Coney Barrett and Gorsuch didn't seem fazed at all. I wouldn't doubt that that's accurate, but hearing that, it's I can't substantiate that. I don't know if that's accurate, but
there's no way because you weren't in the meeting.
If so, then that's one of the most disappointing things I've heard ever from the Supreme Court. Did you have any thoughts on that?
Well, there's been a few cases like that. Plessy v. Ferguson, which really set this stuff up. What's the court case? I'm always forget the name of it. Every time I go to say it, Sanford and Sons joke they said once hits my head, and then I can't think of it. At the what was it? Sanford? No. The one where the Supreme Court ruled that blacks were property, and Abraham Lincoln became the first president then to have a litmus test to select justices. And he would only appoint those men that promised to get rid of that decision. God dang, what's the name of it? Well, they're all floating in my head now, and I can't remember. As soon as I hear one part of it, I'll know the whole thing, but
okay.
I can't remember. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do. I just can't think of the name of the case either.
You can't think of it either? Well, there you go. Now, I don't know that what was said about the people was right. I do know that this is what they do at the Supreme Court. This is how they make decisions. They go and they meet. I also know that historically each justice makes their own choice, and
yes.
the Chief Justice is more of a cat herder. He herds cats, not cattle, and so his job is to get everybody in line and choose a side, and then write opinions and whatnot, and decide who's going to write the opinions. His job is not to tell people how they're going to vote on a case.
Oh, wait.
Or whether they'll vote to hear a case.
Wait. It just came to me. You tell me if this is correct. Dred Scott?
Mm-hmm. Dred Scott. There you go.
Okay.
Thank you. Oh, I can't believe I keep forgetting that name. That to me, along with Roe v. Wade, are the two worst decisions the Supreme Court ever made. Plessy v. Ferguson is the third. Forced busing and all that crap, and then we have this election. Whatever happens, the Supreme Court will go down in history of making the worst decision in history, I believe, as it comes to this, because it doesn't look like the remedy is going to happen for people who have had the election stolen from them. And so we either tolerate election fraud, which ends the republic, or we show fear of the mob and capitulate. Well, that's exactly what happened with Britain. We had mobs, and Britain capitulated, and then the country changed. So here, that tactic works. Let me tell you, you only need about 3% of the nation to be upset enough to change the country. And you've heard me before with my 1/3 rule. There was a third that supported the revolution, a third that was against it, and a third that was ambivalent. Just wanted the war over so they could go back to performing commerce,
right,
and making a living. Well, there you go again. So we're looking at this. Half the country is 50% on each side, basically, fighting this out, and so there's more than enough numbers there to cause a problem and a paradigm shift in American politics, one way or the other, good or bad. Either we're going to go back towards a more constitutional government, unlikely, or more pragmatically, we're going to undercut the rule of law to the point of it being absurd and a mockery, and it'll just be old dead papers from old dead white guys and have no more enforcement in law. And that law will be whatever our government says it is, and it will become like Parliament over in England. The Magna Carta, the Rules of Liberty, all those things that were passed over there only limited the king. It didn't limit Parliament's power. And so Parliament is a tyrant today, not the king, not the queen. And in our country, it will soon be Congress and Democrat presidents that have the autocratic and tyrannical powers, and will be subjects and not sovereigns anymore. So when you look at the Texas lawsuit, it had some 18 other states that had signed on, 126 Republican congressmen, even senators and representatives from Georgia had signed on to say, sue us. and we support it. And yet the Supreme Court still couldn't find any standing for Texas. But you think about those numbers, right? So you got 19 states filing a lawsuit against 4 others. So that's 23 states. There were 21 states that filed against Texas. Amicus curiae, which means friend of the court brief. Mm-hmm. And so 21 states filed amicus curiae briefs. So mostly the blue states filed in favor of the Supreme Court's decision. So they were basically lobbying the Supreme Court not to even listen to Texas. And so that is 44 states out of 50. Or 57 if you're Obama. But, so 44 out of 50 states were involved in this lawsuit in one way or another. And the Supreme Court didn't think it rose to the level of their attention. Forget all the legalese. Forget the standing crap, and, for certiorari or any of that. 44 states are involved in a lawsuit over a contestation of an election because of fraud, blatant fraud. And the Supreme Court was more worried about its public image and being harassed by people for doing the right thing, the constitutional thing. This was a slam dunk. They not only should have granted certiorari because the Constitution demands, it does not give them an option for original jurisdiction, but also the remedy should have been to reset the election. And I don't see why it's such a big deal to say there's peculiarities with all these voting machines. So what we're going to do is stop. We already know all the candidates and who's involved. So we're going to stop, fill out the election results for all 50 states, and do it again. But this time we're going to do it with different machines and fix it. And then have poll watchers who are legally there at a Republican and a Democrat and within 3 feet of the poll counters, the counters and the certifiers and the auditors and all that. So everything should be above board. Everything should be witnessed. Everything should be on video. With technology today, if they were so worried about COVID then why didn't they have some 10-year-old with a drone flying over each position with a camera on it, and watching what's going on? They could have focused on the papers, and we could have seen them digitally, electronically, and monitored all without anybody being at risk for COVID, which is a very dangerous pandemic with only a 99.7%
survivability rate, right?
Rate. Yeah, survivability, right. So, it's a pandemic with built-in herd immunity. What more do you want? And now there's, because of Trump, there's virus shots to take. And so I guess if everybody gets a shot, we'll raise our survivability rate up to 99.8% or 99.9%. Because, I think it'd be just impossible with the Mordecai standards to have 100% survivability on this. Because his mortality rates are high from people that are very old and sick, and have other reasons they're dying. And,
that's a story for another day.
Anyway, that's another story.
Yeah.
Did I answer your question?
But yes, it did. But I want to throw this in too. Much of what I heard in response to people who portrayed themselves as well-educated said something similar to, well, SCOTUS didn't want to hear this case because they don't want to get involved in state elections. It should be pushed down to the state level, and the states should take care of it. But you disagree with that because essentially what you're saying is this is something that SCOTUS was absolutely designed to solve.
Yes. See, now, all these talking heads are correct in one thing. Historically, SCOTUS has refrained from meddling in state affairs, especially with elections. You see, the Constitution says nothing in Article 3, which is about the judiciary, having a role in elections. It also says nothing about, in Article 2, about the president having any role in elections. It is in Article 1 about the House of Representatives and the Senate. They have a role in elections. But most of the things it says about elections, and you think about this, I was curious about this the other day. I was thinking, what percentage of the Constitution deals with elections? It's the vast majority. Okay, very little of the Constitution is about anything but elections if you go and you look at it, including all the amendments, of course. It's where the most details are, and it's where the longest paragraphs are. But what does it say? It says that bless my heart, I just forgot the word. It says that the state legislature is the sole arbiter of power when it comes to deciding when, where, and how elections are to be placed.
Right.
Now, I'm going to ask you a question. Why do you think state legislatures, according to the Constitution, have all that power?
Well, I think it gets back to the House of Representatives, where it was most... The states have the bulk of the power, I believe, under the 10th, and that the federal government should involve itself as little as possible.
Well, you're basically, wrong.
Well, okay, hey, this is why I don't talk to myself about the Constitution. I go to the pros.
Well, you know what? I bet you, I would bet you a paycheck as a professor that would be the most common answer.
Okay.
From everybody, including all the talking heads. But I mean, students, even some professors that teach us would probably tell you that. Let me say it in a different way. I could just tell you the answer, but it's not as fun.
Okay.
Let me ask you in this way. A little Socratic learning here.
Okay.
Okay. Who wrote the Constitution? No, I don't mean by names. I mean just generally in groups. The Constitution was written by the framers of the Constitution, of course, and it was voted on by the the Continental Congress, right? Because it wasn't a Congress under the United States; it was a Congress under the Articles of Confederation.
Okay.
Okay. And they had made the decision that they did not have the authority to write a new constitution and tell us this is what we're all going to follow. So what had to happen? They sent it to the state legislatures for their approval and ratification, who in turn send it to all the people. It's the last time as a country we acted as a democracy, okay? Because everybody voted. Everybody that had a right to vote, which, back then meant you were 21, white, male, and owned land, or earned at least $20 a year in lieu of land. Those were the voting requirements at the time. So the Constitution was written, but it was written by representatives that were sent by state legislatures to a convention, a constitutional convention, to create a convention. They were really there to fix the Articles of Confederation, but that was kind of a scam because Madison and Hamilton, all them, had all that stuff ready to go and plopped out a alternate for everybody to consider instead of fixing the Articles. So they met and they wrote on this. Now, they did this under the guise of the Articles of Confederation. And they sent it back to the state legislatures. Okay, so the state legislatures then are the people who gave birth to the Constitution of the United States. So when you look at the hierarchy of power, the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, not the federal government, not the central government. We call it the federal government today, but the central government is not the supreme law of the land. It's the Constitution. And the central government is not supreme in and of itself. We are a federated republic, constitutionally federated republic. So we got a constitution and we're federated, meaning that we have a central government. Think of like those legal scales. On one side, you've got the central government. On the other, you have all the state governments. And combined, all the state governments outweigh the power of the central government. And that's where the idea of nullification came from, by Thomas Jefferson, that if the states don't like what the central government's doing, we can just nullify it and ignore it. A modern example of that is marijuana. State by state's approving it, even though it's still illegal federally.
Okay.
And pretty soon it will be legal everywhere because the federal government, the central government will just, either stop enforcing those laws or repeal them. And it's because of state nullification. State by state, we're nullifying the central government's authority over us when it comes to marijuana. Good or bad, I'm not advocating. I'm just simply saying, if you want, I'll do a show review on that too. As a vet, I'm an advocate for medicinal marijuana, but I'm not real keen on my surgeons doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I do. Yeah, so, when a surgeon after surgery says, you know what? Oops, that's not good to hear.
Oops, I left a blunt in you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be my life. So the state legislatures gave birth to the Constitution, okay? And in it, they retained their power to decide who gets elected in this country, because that is a very deadly power. And if the state legislatures lose that power, then it will go to tyrants. You see, the thing is it's diffused power if we put it into the state legislatures. All these state legislatures have, usually most of them are bicameral. And it spreads power over a lot of people in each state. And then when you consider that there's 50 states, that power is spread out way well.
Okay.
It's a very diffused power.
Can you
if we
build a definition for a second?
Change.
Can we go back to a definition for a second for people who do not know? Can you tell people what bicameral means?
There's two chambers. Like the United States Congress has a upper house and a lower house. The Senate is the upper house, and the lower house is the House of Representatives.
Okay.
And by the way, the upper and lower is not diminutive. It doesn't mean that the upper chamber is more important than the lower. It's just that in Philadelphia, the Senate met in the rooms that were upstairs, and the House of Representatives met in the rooms downstairs. And so that's how they got their titles, of upper chamber and lower chamber.
Okay. Historical reference then.
Yeah. Kind of cool. So, lost my track. Where was I? The legislators spread out the power,
mm-hmm.
and that's a good thing. But like in Georgia or in Philadelphia, you've got Pennsylvania, rather, you got these. You got the governor or the attorney general rewriting election law. not even consulting the state legislature. In fact, those two knuckleheads started, I don't know if you know this or not, but they started to do a constitutional amendment in Philadelphia and then found out how hard it was, so they quit. They just stopped doing the constitutional amendment and then just statutorily passed, they just made a decree, like an executive order, that this was going to be okay and this is how we were going to do it. And that's what Texas was saying is, whoa, if you guys had done all this following the state legislature's rules for the election, we wouldn't have any complaint. But, this happened because you violated your own constitution willingly, and that jeopardizes and harms Texans. And therefore, we're going to enter into this race. So, you see, that would have been the way for the Supreme Court to fix this. And they could have, they had numbers of options. I think the best one would be just to throw it all away and start over, because then both sides can't really bitch about it. Both sides will, but, it takes the argument away. If you flip the results and say, well, there was fraud, so we're going to give it to Trump, then you're going to have just as big a problem on the left as you do if Biden sits as president from the people on the right. The only difference is the form of violence that it will take. The left will take physical violence, and the right will be passive aggressive as hell, and it will drag its feet. And I wouldn't be surprised to hear of tax protests and people not paying taxes or just not working, and tired of going to work and busting their ass to pay for all these people on the left to steal elections and not work. But the case of violence is there. I think it would be sparked by the left, but the right will finish it if it becomes violent.
I would tend to agree. We got 2 minutes left. We won't be able to get to the other two issues. So, folks, we're talking.
Let me real quick say this for you.
Okay.
The Electoral College met, and they send their sealed envelopes by special courier to the Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence, as President of the Senate. The Congress will meet as a body of the whole, meaning that the Senate and the House will meet together. And then Pence will open up the ballots and proclaim a group of electors for each state. Now, he has the power and authority, and the sole power and authority to do this, by the way. Nancy Pelosi will not be doing anything. She'll be sitting there in the audience fuming, but she won't have a role. Neither does the Supreme Court in this point. And he'll decide which state electors to use. All right? So he can decide to use, if Pennsylvania's state legislature sends a board of electors for Trump, then he can choose to use the governor's electors or for Biden, or the state legislature's electors for Trump. And considering that the Constitution says that the state legislature decides on the electoral college delegates and which ones to send, that power is in the state legislatures. So it would make sense for Mike Pence to rule towards any state legislature's delegates, as opposed to one's attorney generals or secretary of states or governors saying. Then you have, this happens on January the 6th.
Right.
Now, Congress is seated on the 3rd of January. There's by amendments to the Constitution. Now Congress meets, instead of in December, they meet January 3rd, get sworn in, they find out where the restroom is in the chow hall and crap, and then they sit down on the 6th and choose the president. And so that's why they're seated on the 6th of January, and the president is not seated until the 20th. And so we heard this deadline, right, of the 6th, okay? Well, even then, there's not really a deadline. Even after Mike Pence and the Congress says it, if they can't choose who to have as an elector, and what happens is Pence says, we'll use these delegates for Pennsylvania. If one representative and one senator, they have to have one from each chamber, raise their hand to contest the vote, then they'll break down into a 2-hour debate in their separate chambers, and then they'll choose the electors, and then come back and find out who's going to be what. Now, here's the thing: is January 20th, we're supposed to have an inauguration. That's not the drop-dead date. If Congress still can't decide who's going to be the president, Congress actually has all the way to the 4th of March. That, by the way, is the day that we decided on the, in 1789, March the 4th, was when we created the Constitution. So the 4th of March is when Congress has to. Now, if they haven't picked the president by then what happens is the two chambers split, and the top two vote getters, which would be Biden and Trump in this case, will go to the House of Representatives, and they will have to pick who's for president. Now, Texas has 36 or so delegates to the House of Representatives, and as U.S. representatives. So we don't get 36 votes. What happens is the 36 Texans meet in the Texas caucus, and they vote on President Biden or President Trump. And then Texas goes to the House floor and votes with one vote for which candidate they choose. And so right now, under the House of Representatives, statewide, Republicans run 30 states and Democrats run 20. So the president, if we stood by party lines, then the president of the United States will be Trump. And, of course, the Senate picks the vice president. And Pence only gets a vote if there's a tie in that. But that's the drop dead date no one's telling you is that Congress has all the way to the 4th of March to pick who's going to be the president and the vice president, and they have to pick. It's a no joke. You're going to vote on this today, and you win the debate and the uncertainty. In the interim, from January 20th to the 4th of March, the vice president and president stay in office unless they're going out of office. They've already been in term like twice, so they can't stay. Well, in that case, then here's the weird thing: the vice president-elect would be president temporarily while it all gets figured out. So
we're
crazy.
We're not even hearing, folks. I'm talking to Dr. Michael Jones, constitutional professional scholar, expert. Okay, we'll say
that's
expert.
That's important because you remember this: an X is a has-been, and a spurt's a little drip under pressure.
Okay, good point. Thank you for the clarification. Yes. But we're not hearing this at all about March 3rd. Theoretically, or March 4th, theoretically, it could all be pushed back, no solution agreed upon, March 4th after a vote, one per state. We could discover that office of the president-elect, Joe Biden, might not be president.
Right. Yeah. Office of the president-elect, which doesn't exist, of course.
No.
I'm sure all your listeners know that, or you've already probably mentioned it. But see, that's funny. Not only does that office not exist, but he's not president-elect, and neither's Trump. Because the Electoral College only met, and you don't become president-elect until the Senate and the House confirm the Electoral College votes. So, on the 6th of January, there's a good chance somebody will become president-elect, but no one will be until the 6th at the earliest in this country ever, because of the way the Constitution is read. But it's presumptive and deliberative of the left to call him president-elect to get people used to the idea. So much that even people like McConnell already come in and saying, forget it. He's the president-elect. Call him that.
Oh, that's a story for another day. I was so fried when I heard that. You've got an individual who doesn't even know the Constitution. Okay,
no,
well, I just answered.
But he took an oath to defend it.
Yeah, I just answered my own question.
Yeah, and you see, that's the thing. I think if this goes bad, what we ought to demand, and I mean go out at night with torches and stand in front of, on Pennsylvania Avenue, stand in front of the state legislatures and demand that the traitors that have committed treason, all 535 of them up there, be dismissed from Congress. I'm talking everybody, even Ted Cruz. If they allow this to happen, they've destroyed the Republic. They've destroyed our Constitution, and they destroyed anything close to a federated government. And the fact that they each took an oath to get up there and defend and protect the Constitution from enemies, both foreign and domestic, which is an oath that everybody in the military takes.
Yes.
The fact that they've taken that and then throw it all and piss on it and hope that we're not smart enough because we all went to public school and they don't teach us anymore, that we had our rights violated by traitors. And that's exactly what this is all about. Forget all the intrigue with China and Russia, and voting machines that are 68% more likely to vote Biden than Trump. And in Germany and Italy and all that crap. But forget all that. Congress, this is what pisses me off, Jeff, is this. We're all at panic mode right now. But this should have been fixed years ago. Back in 2000, this should never even come up again. But this, again, should have been fixed in 2016. We've had plenty of opportunities. So for anybody in Congress to get up there and tell you that they've really tried, but they fought the good fight, but it's not going to work, that's bullshit. They had all this opportunity. If they've ever read the Constitution, it doesn't take much to figure this stuff out. And they have plenty of consultants up there that can tell them what the Constitution says and doesn't say. And so for all this to be happening to this country, the chaos, the violence, is completely unnecessary, and it is because the members of Congress have created treason themselves by not following the Constitution. But no one wants to say that because that's too big of a problem to deal with. And what is the solution? Fire them all and start over. We may have to have another constitutional convention after all in this country. And,
which is difficult to do. I learned that from you.
Yes.
It's not just something that you snap in and snap out of.
And it's dangerous.
Yeah,
we could very well lose things like the Second Amendment.
Right, because when you open it, that allows people to push the camel's nose not just into the tent, but to thrust the entire camel into the tent, subject to changing, anything. Hey, in chat, the Alaskan wanted me to ask you this. He said, where we go? Oh, he said, ask Dr. Jones about Michigan not letting in the Republican electors in to vote.
Well, that's unconstitutional. It says it right there in their Constitution, voted on by their state legislatures, that poll watchers are not only legal but necessary. And same with Pennsylvania and Georgia and all the other places that did crazy stuff like escort them out or push them 25 yards away or hand them binoculars and crap like that. That was all unconstitutional, and there's a reason for it. You don't deny poll watching unless you want to commit fraud.
No,
because if you're doing everything above board, who cares?
Yeah,
right?
It's all purposeful. Yeah. It's all done, pre-planned. This was the perfect time, 2020, to instigate any number of actions that would turn this country upside down. When we come back, I'd like to come.
It was done simultaneously.
Oh, yeah.
That's my biggest problem with all happening at the same time. But think about this: if we had just had a law of voter ID, and that no one could vote except for in person or absentee with a requested ballot for cause, like shut-ins or people in wheelchairs like me, then we wouldn't have had this problem, because they wouldn't have been allowed to do all the fraud that they did.
The chaos was
so
pre-planned.
It's just that simple of a fix for the next one. Yeah.
It is. The chaos was pre-planned. Because if this was the scenario for November 3rd, then can we not say with the logical extension, oh, that's the way we'll probably do it in Georgia on January 5th?
You realize last Monday was the first day of early voting in Georgia, right?
Oh, yes.
So
yeah, they're already there.
Already under that rule.
Yeah.
So you can't change the laws on that or tighten them up or clean them up now because the election's already started. And you see, the funny thing is if you try to enforce the laws that are on the books, then they scream at you that the election's already started and you can't change the rules. But they changed the rules just before the election themselves, and now they cry foul that we're trying to change them back to the legal ones. Go figure.
And ask people to actually follow the law. I'd like to have you back, Michael Jones, but thank you for being here tonight. Every time I talk to you, I learn something new. I did not know about March 4th, nor how that is conducted. But I'll leave with this last bit with you. March 4th, 2021, let's say one vote comes out per state and Trump wins. Will everyone go home and sit down and watch TV and be nice people?
Let me say it this way. If you have any spare money, disposable income, buy stock in plywood.
Oh, God. Oh, yes. Holy
you know
moly.
what I mean?
Oh, boy, do I ever. Just in downtown Sacramento. I'm going to go down to downtown Sacramento. It's still this way. It hasn't changed. Any number of stores are still boarded up in downtown Sacramento. I'm going to start taking the photographs and doing the video. Michael Jones, thank you for being here.
Is Rodeo Drive still that way?
I would expect. I don't know, but I can't think
You guys call it something like rodeo because you don't know what a rodeo is.
Right. Well, it's also because they're down in Southern California. They're all valley girls and valley boys down there.
Totally.
Yeah. Completely.
I interrupted you. I'm sorry. Were you going to ask me a question?
No. I'm just going to say that thank you for being here tonight. I greatly appreciate it, and I would love to have you back.
Anytime.
Okay.
What you got to do is set up a show one time where you don't have too many people on, so you have time.
I know, that's true.
Every time you get me going, we go into new places, and you're like, uh-oh.
That's very true. And I've got everybody tonight scheduled, so we'll go to Gabrielle Ingram next, right after you.
And
so
she's great. You're going to like her.
Oh, my God, is she ever. Talk about smart. So, folks.
She's a Yankee. She talks so fast, I can't hear half of what she says.
That's Dr. Michael Jones. Thank you for being here tonight, sir. And we got to have you. Yeah. We got to have you back.
Anytime, sir. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very kindly. And, folks, we will be back right after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
It is he that is me, bringing perspective from across the sea. Join me, Jack Alexander, 4 days a week for the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast, as I take a unique outsider's look at the news and issues affecting life and liberty here in the USA. I'll show you what the mainstream media refuses to. Politics, border security, defense, healthcare, travel, nothing is off limits. Catch the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast each Monday to Thursday on Facebook, YouTube, and everywhere good podcasts can be found. Also, check out the website, www.jackalexanderexperiment.com.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
After 6 years covering terror and corruption, the Unpleasant Blind Guy is making a change. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker and YouTube through SHR Media and on the Western Free Radio Network as I team up with Jeff Mitchell, host of the English Defense Elite Radio Show on blogtalkradio.com. Check show pages for airtimes. It's the Unpleasant Blind Guy.
On ABL Radio.
There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And we're back. That went a little long. But I don't mind when you've got somebody as incredibly informed as Dr. Michael Jones, especially with a topic that is so necessary these days. I wish I could talk to him every night. I was thinking about this. I was thinking about starting at the start. I've always been a big believer in, when in doubt, go back to the basics. And what I mean by that is, when I was range master of a 3,000 plus deputy department that I retired from in 2016, I wanted to go back to the basics in terms of firearms, and that's grip, sight picture, and manipulation. I learned that from Vince Lombardi. He said football is all about two things, blocking and tackling. And I always want to go back to the basics. So what I'd like to do someday is just start with the Constitution, the Magna Carta, and go bit by bit, just one topic per show, go through the Constitution, go through the Federalist Papers. That's going to take a bunch of shows, actually. And then go through each of the Bill of Rights. I think that would be an incredibly illuminating show. That would be a wonderful, wonderful thing to do. I have instead now, I have a new guest that I've had on before. So, what I say is, let's see.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
We are back, ladies and gentlemen. And so is Gabrielle Ingram. And she is a community activist. She works for, I can't say works for necessarily, but you created Stand Up Sacramento County, that site on Facebook, didn't you?
Correct, yes.
Okay. So this is Gabrielle Ingram. I have had her on the show personally in the studio twice, 3 times?
Twice, I think.
Twice before, okay. And we did a lot of things. We set a lot of standards, set a fast pace. And essentially, Gabrielle is a community activist from here where we broadcast, where the SHR Media Network is. So when we say we're 2 miles east of the Bill Mill, the belly of the beast, the locus of evil on the entire left coast, that would be true. The Capitol building downtown at 10th and L Streets, we are about 2 miles east of that building. Because Gabrielle Ingram, you've been here, and you can see that that's pretty much where we are.
Yep.
So you talked about Sacramento County and the Board of Supervisors wanting to install up to a $10,000 fine levied against businesses who are in violation of whatever regulations the County Board of Supervisors mandates here in Sacramento County. Would that be accurate?
Mm-hmm. Through public health, so they would be the final sign-off on that.
Okay, through county health.
Mm-hmm.
And now, did they envision that going or being levied against individual citizens under violations?
I don't know if they expected that, but that's how it was presented by public health, that it was civil and commercial. It was not just businesses. It would have been against anybody had it gone through.
Which again, and I'm sure that's the same thing you were thinking, is what are these people trying to do? What are they thinking?
Mm-hmm.
At a time when businesses are going under at a prodigious rate, businesses are going bankrupt, families are going bankrupt, and then you levy a fine against a business, potentially against an individual themselves, if bureaucrats perceive them to be a particular bother. I don't get any of this. So briefly, for those who may not have listened to you the 2 prior times, you're a community activist, you're a mother, you're married, you have kids, you're in a family. How did this all come to your forefront? How did you first decide that you're going to get involved in this?
I was trying to figure out what to do because my husband has a couple businesses. He's an independent contractor, so our livelihood is dependent on other businesses being open, and we were hit hard. And we drained our savings through this summer. We didn't get an unemployment check until 2 weeks ago, and at that rate, it was only for 5 weeks of the 27 weeks that we were impacted. So it's enough to keep us floating for another month. It's not enough to cover what we've lost. And so I was trying to figure out, how can I support him? What can I do to try and fix this? And that was when friends reached out. I am friends with the Freedom Angels, and they are true activists. They have been in the political scene for over 3 years now. They had been helping with Placer County, helping with Atwater, and they didn't pioneer those things, but they helped rally people to support the Board of Supervisors in Placer County when they talked about rescinding their local health emergency declaration because the data and the science didn't match up. Atwater City, they declared themselves a sanctuary city for businesses because the data and the science didn't back up, and they separated themselves from public health and defied the state. And Freedom Angels said, this is going too slow. Who do we know in different counties that we trust that could help expand this wheelhouse and spread it out? And so I was called and said, hey, can you help in Sacramento? And I said, help what? Like, can we have a conversation to talk about that? And then the next thing I knew, I was being funneled documents, and this is how to, and here we are. So it was friends that knew that I was trying to figure out what to do, and they needed help on what they were doing. And we're now in over 30 different countries. I have a call with New Jersey tonight for a county up there that's trying to get help. So they are pushing the United Counties of America initiative, the Freedom Angels, and it's not just Sacramento. There are counties all over California, all over the nation that are doing what we're doing here.
So you took it upon yourself to create this Facebook page called Stand Up Sacramento County. And folks, if you want to go there, it's under facebook.com/groups/stand-up-sac-county, SAC County. And you can go right there and look around. It tells you what the whole thing is about. You've made any number of videos of what's been going on. You came to my attention when I watched the video of you having gone to the Board of Supervisors, the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors, to listen and attempt to opine on what it was that they were talking about, because they were going to weigh in on whether or not they would levy or support up to these $10,000 fines. And when you went there, you were not allowed in. The people that were there in the building didn't want you there in the first place. Then they called the Sacramento Police Department.
Yep.
And briefly, how did that day wrap up?
We were allowed in the building, but we were not allowed in chambers, which is where the Board of Supervisors are. We were told we could go in a side room. However, of the four of us that were there initially, none of us were wearing masks, and three of us refused. One of them did put a mask on upon request, and so that is why SAC PD was called. They were telling us that we could not be in the building if we did not have a face mask. I had cited a medical condition, which I legitimately have. I won't lie. I legitimately have one. And so we had 90 minutes with SAC PD there, going back and forth with the county building manager. And the way it ended was SAC PD left as we reminded the county that the guidelines state that if you have a medical condition, you're exempt. So are you going to honor your county health guidelines, or are you not? And SAC PD had told them we cannot trespass them from a county building. And in the end, so that little victory was won. Unfortunately, it was 2 hours later before they got to the agenda item for enforcement, and the county voted to move it until the 8th. So we were there, and we had that little impasse, but they ended up not voting on it that day.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Which gave us time to educate the public, and that's when I launched the Facebook page, because I said, okay, I need this to go out to more than just the people I know. We need to educate businesses. We friends, any business we walked into, the question was, have you heard about the enforcement issue? Educating people one at a time. We created a Facebook page to try and share it with all of the Patriot groups, and that's how that group grew. And I created the group because we needed to let people know fast that the enforcement item's hitting on the 8th. And when we showed back up on the 8th, we had 50 people. So we went from 5 to 50 through the creation of that group and educating businesses door to door.
And I'm looking at your Facebook page, Stand Up Sacramento County, and you're listed as a public group, so people can access it anywhere. If you're on Facebook, folks, it says you have already 286 members. I'm sure that people are reading your page and listening to your videos. So not this past Tuesday, but the Tuesday before, you went back to see if they were actually going to levy those fines and regulations. What transpired that day?
On the 8th, this time, we were met with resistance to even be in that side room. And we had asked for a microphone, like, okay, you're not going to let us in chambers. Can we have a microphone so we can have a live conversation with these supervisors and weigh in on public comment rather than being on the phone? We were told no. And citizens that were there who were already very stressed that the topic of enforcement even hit the agenda, that it wasn't rejected beforehand, being told that they couldn't have a microphone and weigh in, some of them snapped, started banging on the doors. One had a microphone, was yelling, and they were yelling, let us in, let us in. And they made it into chambers, and some of them vented off their frustration. SAC PD showed back up. The sheriff who is in that building, who is in charge of the safety of the Board of Supervisors, he showed up. And basically a quick summary is they said the meeting was disrupted. They're concerned about the safety of the supervisors. We need everybody out of chambers to avoid arrest. And the end decision was everybody left chambers. Nobody was arrested that day. And we continued our observation of the meeting by television from the lobby, and we called in for public comment. However, we had multiple issues of calls being dropped. There were 100 people in queue, so we wouldn't let anybody else into queue. And then there was a time where somebody else was trying to get in, and they had closed the queue. So our whole reason for being there was because of the chronic issues with the technology. And wanting to weigh in on a microphone, because you can't ignore a line that's going out the building waiting to give comment one by one. But we were there, and public health ended up pulling the ordinance. It never went to a vote. They pulled it based on over 2,500 emails going to the Board of Supervisors from the public, over 2 hours of phone calls, and then the 50-plus people that showed up that day. Public health just pulled it all together with a note that they plan to rewrite it towards gatherings. And we haven't seen it come back yet. It'll probably show back up in January.
Okay, so the County Board of Supervisors decided to table the issue of punitive reactions or fiscal fines and levies if regulations are violated until January. So between now and January, there isn't really anything to do with the County Board of Supervisors at this juncture because they're not even meeting, they're not doing anything else. Is that accurate then?
We are trying to get them to do an emergency hearing based on their COVID response, and also on the PCR testing. So we're trying to get them back through. Also, yesterday at their meeting, they discussed the $40+ million surplus that they have not spent in coronavirus relief funding, and public health neglected to get an adequate budget and description of what they wanted to use that money for. And so there was no decision made yesterday on what they would apply it for. And a couple of the Board of Supervisors, even CERNA, who I usually am very vocal against, even CERNA said, we need an economic relief package here, but we don't know how much money we can use for that. And Sue Frost was very vocal that when you guys bring us numbers back so we can actually make a decision on this, it might be too late for a lot of businesses. And that's the truth. That's what we've been trying to get across for months. You guys are slowly making these decisions that affect our livelihood, and doesn't seem to be any urgency except for fines to punish us. They are talking about doing a hearing, a special meeting for this when Public Health comes back with a budget, but my understanding is they don't expect it to be until after Christmas, until into January.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I'm looking at your update that you wrote here. You wrote for the $40+ million in coronavirus relief funding, they approved extending the deadline. My question when I first saw that line was, okay, where'd they get the $48 million? Sacramento County taxpayers, or was it federal?
Most of it was federal. There is some that came from state, and I don't know the breakdown of the quantity of which was federal, which was state. But they had until December 31st to spend it for the amount that was federal before that went back. They had to decide, do we extend the deadline, or do we send the money back? And so they approved extending the deadline, but they did not make a decision on what will be done with the unspent money, unspoken for money.
Okay. Can I suggest that throughout all of this, is it not pissing you off incredibly because of this laissez-faire reaction to something that is absolutely critical? My suggestion also is they're acting as if, and I'm asking for you to respond, they're acting as if they have no skin whatsoever in this game. They appear to be, at this point, completely disinterested. Do they have any skin in the game, and are you getting any feeling or any spidey sense that they realize how absolutely critical this is, not just for Sacramento County, everyone, everywhere, but their job is Sacramento County. Do your damn job.
Kennedy made a point that they over-delegated with this, that they shouldn't have given so much of this to the staff, that the last time they had a presentation on what the money would be spent on was roughly March. They blamed the former county executive who was out on administrative leave. So they were kind of passing the buck a little bit on accountability. Great. They did accept that we should have been watching this closer. I mean, I've worked with many budgets. You don't not look at a budget for 9 months, especially when it's $40+ million. But no, they don't have enough skin in the game. They're still collecting a paycheck.
Yes.
They're going out on a holiday leave. They're going out on their Christmas break for 2+ weeks, while the rest of us are trying to figure out which bill to pay. And, okay, I need to keep food on the table, so maybe I should do the fireplace instead of putting the heat on because our business is tanking. They don't have skin in the game, per se. They just have frustration that somebody didn't bring them a budget when they were asking. It's like, come on. Like, no, there's not enough skin in the game. If they were truly trying to represent the people, if the governor says, or public health says, hey, move these businesses back to 50%, then their paycheck should be hit 50%. They need to feel what we're feeling, and maybe they would be paying more attention and not just, hey, we've asked for this budget, you didn't send it. Hey, you asked for this budget, you didn't send it. Like, no, like that, yeah, that angers me. And when I left the meeting yesterday, I was totally deflated because I was just like, how the heck do we fix this? Because not only are they not taking this seriously, they're not affected by it, they're not listening to the people because they're not responding to emails, they're not taking our phone calls, and then they straight locked us out of the building yesterday. So every time we show up, it gets worse and worse. First, we get PD called because we're not wearing masks, but we're allowed to stay because they can't enforce that. Second time, we're not going to give you a microphone. So sorry you got mad. You need to stay in the lobby. Oh, I'm sorry, the phones keep dropping you. Now it's you can't even come in the building. However, people were allowed in the building to pay their taxes. So you can enter the building if you need to do business because they want your money, but you may not enter the building for your constitutional right under the Brown Act to observe and participate in a public meeting. And they're citing the executive orders under Newsom for a pandemic response that overrides the Brown Act, which is completely unconstitutional to begin with, but they don't care. So it's absolutely frustrating.
Tom Bell, I don't know if you've read him, has an article that came out that said they're working on that, and they're using essentially Gretchen Whitmer and what she's done in Michigan as sort of a boilerplate to come up with some kind of a solution. I'm not sure Newsom is really going to be forced into any kind of a solution. By the way, folks, if you see something for Recall Gavin Newsom and people out trying to get you to sign it, I'm in California, always spell it with a K, and Gabrielle's in California, always spell it with a K. Sign the petition, please. Let's get this guy out of the governor's chair in the Capitol building at 10th and L Street. The other thing that I'm noticing in articles, in social media, in larger cities, San Francisco, New York, etc., people are being served notices. The managers and owners want their rent, or you've got to get out. Mm-hmm. They want their rent, or you have to move. You have to pay your mortgage, or you're going to have to get out. People, I understand what the homeowners, the lien holders, I understand the box they're in. I understand that by dint of other people not being able to pay their bills for rent or for a mortgage, that puts the onus back on them because they in turn have bills to pay to the bank. I get that. Mm-hmm. But that, in my estimation, even underlines and italicizes and emboldens the immediacy and the criticality under which everything here is going now. Because if I'm not mistaken, okay, I'm looking at what you had written. Dr. Bylinson said in the meeting the lockdown is for 3 weeks, basically until the California lockdown, always spell it with a K, is for basically the rest of this month, but is estimated to be 8 weeks.
8 weeks.
8 weeks. So this is Newsom saying this, mandated this. So he stated this would be due to people gathering for Christmas, which would spike cases. I'm just throwing this in. I'll wager if you had one of those really long swabs and put it up my dog's nose, my dog would test positive for COVID-19. That's just a guess. And, of course, because if you test positive for COVID, that's one of any number of SARS viruses around. So I don't go on all these positives. I bet a bunch of them are true, but I bet a bunch of them are false as well. Those are any number of issues. Mm-hmm. So from now until January, because, my God, everything is happening at once. Now we're having this massive issue with the election. That aside, from now until January, Gabrielle Ingram, what day in January did they say the County Board of Supervisors would come back and reconsider?
As of right now, January 12th is the next scheduled meeting, but they're pending a possible special meeting about this about the money, the coronavirus relief funding.
Which you would like to see, and a much earlier meeting.
Much earlier, this week. I mean, if they really cared, but I know they're waiting on public health to get the numbers together. I can't imagine that someone's not being written up or fired for not having the numbers there for the meeting yesterday. I mean, that's complete negligence to me. You've got people's livelihoods on the line.
But the other thing that infuriates me, and I bet infuriates you, is 2020 to me seems to be the year of absolutely no consequences. You can screw up to your heart's content, particularly in forms of government, all the way up to the federal, down to the state, down to the county, and nothing seems to get done. No one seems to much care. It's as though they are completely inviolate. You cannot touch me, and they're responding and their sloth-like snail responses reflects this. That's infuriating, which is why I go back to, you got skin in the game. I got skin in the game. People with families, like we said last week, you're lucky you had some savings. What about all the people that don't have savings? What about the people that work from paycheck to paycheck because for whatever extenuating series of circumstances, they just don't have that? Now, what do?
Yeah, I have a friend that's living in a double wide in on her parents' property now. They've got the kids in there. I met a guy yesterday at the building that he has lost millions in his business. And when the media came, I said, "Do you want to talk to them?" And he's like, "No, I can't. I get too mad. I can't talk straight." But he's lost millions, so he's trying to do everything he can to feed his family. People are hurting, and we're not like mildly hurting. We may lose our home hurting. And so food closets are running out of food, and they're talking about funding that some more. But it's not enough. You see tents all over. I drive by Florin Road every time I have to go downtown. You see tents everywhere surrounding county public health. It's just absolutely insane. We are literally, California has become, yesterday standing outside, as I realized that they're in there collecting their paychecks. They've put fences up so we can't even see them, and they're in there making decisions that affect our livelihoods. This is communism. And I'm just standing there, just sitting here processing it as our homeless camps grow and friend after friend is making decisions. And it's absolutely overwhelming, and then I had to recollect myself last night because I'm like, what's the point? And I had to pull myself together to get, my strategy today. Now what am I going to do? Because I'm not done fighting. I'm going to fight until we have nothing left. We're going to do something. But
I was looking at the media today, and these specific numbers reflect the city of New York. But I would wager and submit that they reflect essentially anywhere across the United States. New York's COVID cases, these are estimated numbers. People are getting COVID from households and social gatherings. Number one, 73.84%. Two, healthcare delivery, 7.8%. Higher education students. Now, listen to these numbers as compared to the first. Higher education students, 2%. Education employees, 1.5%. And we've shut down all the restaurants and bars all across America. And from these numbers in New York as well, restaurants and bars, people are getting COVID-19 the least at 1.4%. There are no statistics mandating this. And I find
the science isn't driving this bus.
No.
That's not what's driving this bus.
Okay, I'm looking at also what you wrote. You said during the COVID-19 presentation by Public Health, the most notable items were Peters pushed on the ICU percentages. Now, I'm not familiar with Peters. Who is Peters?
Susan Peters is one of the supervisors, and she actually, this was her last meeting, unless they get this special meeting done before December 31st. Rich Desmond will be replacing her for January. So she's one of the supervisors.
Okay.
She's District 5? I'm not sure, but she's one of the 5 supervisors.
Okay, so folks, listen up. This is, as you've quoted, a supervisor, Peters, said on the ICU percentages, as the public, due in part to the media, have been led to believe our ICUs are full of COVID patients when it's only 15 to 30% of ICU beds that are COVID and the rest are other issues. I'm not making this number up. You're not making this number up. Your Facebook page is not making this number up. This is a number proffered by a Sacramento County Board of Supervisor.
He pushed Dr. Belliance in for clarification, and he's who gave the percentage. Yeah.
15 to 30% of ICU beds that are COVID, and the rest are other issues. She also said on normal winter ICU capacity in relation, in general, is roughly the same.
We're always full this time of year. We're always at a 85 to 90% capacity in the winter due to cold and flu season.
Okay, folks, are you hearing what Gabrielle Ingram is saying to you? And that's the reason that I want her on the show, continuing, because if you think this is just a little winky Sacramento issue, though it is the capital of the state of California, always spell it with a K, what's happening here is probably happening in your neighborhood, your city, your county, your state. Multiply this, there are 58 counties in California, always spell it with a K, times 50 states, times any number of whatever your state has for counties. That's why you listen. Understand what's going on right under your nose. And all we hear on the media, and I'd like you to also weigh in on this, Gabrielle Ingram, all we hear in the media is cases, 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 and hospitalization. No one takes time to investigate this further and put it all into perspective. Gabrielle Ingram, what is your general perspective on all of this?
I stopped watching the media a long time ago, unless somebody sends me a clip that I need to see. And it's all easy to verify. If nobody around you understands this, it's on the CDC website. You can look up COVID data by county. You can look at your hospital census. You can look up the statistics from the last few years. It's all there, and it might take you 30 minutes to maybe an hour the first time you do it, and you can look it all up yourself. You don't have to rely on others and wonder if they're giving you the correct information. Anybody that takes the time to go look at it themselves probably has the critical thinking skills to evaluate it. They're lying to us. And maybe they believe the cases, because it's coming from public health in the state. So maybe some media people really believe that they're given true information and they're not taking the time to do journalistic research. But cases are driven by faulty PCR tests that are cycling at a threshold above what is recommended. They're picking up dead viral cells. And if we so much as adjusted the case numbers by the percentage that is average for the false positive rate, we would not be in a dark purple tier here in California. We would be in a purple or red tier. Never mind that the tier-based system has already been ruled unconstitutional in other areas. But if people took the time to adjust, what we're dealing here is power. What we're dealing with here is mandates under the guise of science, as science is completely ignored, and the people are being played. So yes, there is a virus. Yes, it's making people sick. Yes, there are people in the hospital that need medical help. But no, all of this that's going on around us, as they strip our incomes and strip our livelihoods and mental health slips and our kids aren't in school, none of that needs to be happening.
Folks, we're talking to Gabrielle Ingram. She is a community activist here in the county of Sacramento. But what occurs in the county of Sacramento in California, always spell it with a K, here also infects and affects you as well, which is why I want to have her continuing to be on the show. What's happening here is happening right there with you in your area under your nose, and you need to be made aware of it. A minimum of 40 to 50% of the deaths in the leading states of death, New York, New Jersey, to a degree California, are due to the elderly in nursing homes and nursing facilities. Now, Don Natale, a supervisor, said in this meeting, and Gabrielle Ingram, correct me if I'm wrong, that it was explained Here, 45 to 50% of the fatalities in Sacramento County are nursing home residents. Why aren't we focusing on helping the poor, the least able to take care of themselves and fight this virus in areas? Because my grandmother was in a nursing home. My father went into nursing homes 3 times. I'm quite familiar with them. These are people in facilities with the least amount of equipment, having individuals with the least amount of training. It shouldn't be a surprise that up to 50% of the deaths are there. And yet it's portrayed as if the entire nation is falling apart. And it seems as though, why aren't we focusing on our nursing homes and facilities? If this is what the science is telling us and the real stats are telling us. And I would wager, Gabrielle Ingram, that's another thing that irritates and frustrates you with this entire scenario.
I find it criminal. I mean, we can't visit our elders, right? There's nobody there. You have grandma with dementia, or they're in a care home for a reason, and they need people and loved ones there to advocate for them. How many times do you hear people saying, oh, they were messing up their meds, or grandma's lonely, or I had a friend whose grandpa was failing. The isolation was killing him. He was starving himself. They checked, they brought him home, and it was a huge battle to bring him home. And within 2 days, he had gained 7 pounds. He was starving himself. He'd lost the will to live because he was cut off and isolated. So how much of that is happening around the country? And that's not the only story I've heard. That's just a personal friend. So then you add in that they're sick, and maybe they do, in fact, have COVID. Are they getting proper care? You know, if a caretaker can come in and wear PPE to take care of the patient, why can't I go in to help with a loved one in full PPE? That's the one time that I would be willing to wear full PPE. They are more susceptible to this virus. The logic isn't there. All of this propaganda to tell us that the person not wearing a mask at Walmart, they're the reason that we're still locked down, is absolute lies. It makes me infuriated. I see our elders in prison. I see this as absolutely criminal. And then the twisted data that's hiding this, and the fact that a supervisor has to even ask this because it's not being portrayed out there. He had to push to get Dr. Bellinson to answer this question. So of the 650 plus people that have died in our county, over half of them, over 300 of them, were nursing home residents. So yeah, it makes me mad. That's an understatement.
So why, folks, are we not concentrating, or why are we not hearing in the media more focus, or a demand by the media to focus on the people least able to fight for themselves, contained in facilities where people cannot interact with them? And yet the focus is on cases, and I'm not hearing a damn word about the people most susceptible to this and most frequently killed by this. I find it disgraceful. Then, just as you indicated, the governor's director of public health admitted the decision to close outdoor dining wasn't based on any kind of science or the transmission of COVID. And I just gave you stats about where they actually come from, where it's being disseminated. This is a slap in the face to restaurant owners, their employees, to other businesses who could be open, who are struggling to pay bills, feed their families. The governor and a guy named Dr. Gailey both avoided answering a reporter's question, just like you, Gabrielle Ingram, posed a couple of minutes ago, about what ICU capacity is normally like at this time of year. No one is asking, and if they ask, they're being pushed aside. No one wants to talk about that. So as you indicated, this is kind of normal for this time of year because the flu comes around and other bugs.
Yep.
Aren't there days when you wake up and you go, I'm at a loss. How do I fight this?
Yes.
It seems like a monster. I'm trying with all my heart. I'm really, really frustrated. So
I told a friend this morning, I feel like I'm taking on not Goliath, and I don't have a rock or a slingshot.
No,
I'm just staring at Goliath, willing him to fall down.
No, you're not even armed.
Yeah.
So if people want to, well, let me back up a little bit. I said this before, and I'm going to continue to say it. Whether you like it or not, and sometimes I think you're going, oh, man, you are one of the finest spokespersons for a cause or a rallying point that I've heard in quite some time. That includes Brandon Strock and anyone else that I've seen. You're highly intelligent, focused, you speak the lingo, you're well educated on the topic, and I just want to continue to give you props and kudos. You know what's going on.
Thank you.
You know what's happening in front of their eyes. You've studied the situation, looked at the statistics and the reports, sift through the data, and come to your own conclusion, which is why another reason exists that you can't pull the wool over the eyes of Gabrielle Ingram. That's another reason I respect you and like you here on the show. So let's wrap up in this fashion. If people want to help you locally, how would they best contact you for any kind of assistance, whether it's monetary, psychological, numerical? How can people help if they hear this and they want to help you and they want to help the cause?
I think the best way right now is through the Facebook group, Stand Up Sacramento County. We did, on the prompting of a couple people, because so many people are leaving Facebook, we did start a MeWe group with the same name, Stand Up Sacramento County. I am struggling to keep up with social media. A friend just took over the MeWe page to help me keep it updated, but you could reach either way. Those would be the best ways to reach me, as you can just message through there.
Okay, last week Facebook was screwing with me relentlessly. I read somewhere in your social media that it appears Facebook is already, though this group, how long has this group, your Facebook page, Stand Up Sacramento County, been operating?
2 weeks, 3 weeks, somewhere around Thanksgiving.
Okay.
I finally got it up. Yeah, they're already suppressing the algorithms. I mean, we're talking about a highly regulated topic, right? So it's already suppressing things. Sometimes I go in to approve new members and it keeps reloading and it won't let me click on approve, or there's weird things happening. So Facebook is a problem. But yes, I am collecting. There is a Google form on there where I'm collecting people's email addresses and phone numbers. And when I email elected officials, some people ask me to blind carbon copy them on there because they're learning and reading along as they go, or sometimes they'll also reply. So we're building an old school phone tree list at this point.
Okay. January 12th, absent another meeting, January 12th is when you'll be going back to listen and or speak before the County Board of Supervisors.
Mm-hmm.
If there's any information to relay before then, or if you're granted any kind of an emergency hearing and something occurs during that, I'd love to have you back. I will always want to have you back. I'd like to hear anything that you have to say from any potential meeting such as that, or whatever happens to transpire on January 12th. I always want to have you back. You're a great spokesperson for Stand Up Sacramento County, for individuals who are, they're frankly losing their businesses, their homes, their apartments. their families. People are divorcing over this.
Yeah.
Losing homes. Unable to pay bills. And losing...
Adolescent suicide rate is up.
Losing people, adolescents, any age, the elderly, by suicide who have never encountered anything like this before and perceive, rightly or wrongly, nothing is being done.
Mm-hmm.
This has to... So, we have to do something. We can't sit down. And I might leave with this. When has a regulation been levied by a government, taxes, fines, entitlements, or in this case, reduced freedoms during this, when are the instances that you can delineate, folks, when, oh, yeah, it all came back. Yeah, we got it back. And you know what? We even got more freedoms. When has that ever occurred?
Allow them to strip our liberty and you kiss it goodbye. Everybody, I keep hearing people say, it's just a mask. It'll all go away when the vaccine comes out. And now what are we hearing?
Yeah.
Oh, the vaccine sheds. So you may be exposed to coronavirus from somebody who just got the vaccine. It doesn't prevent you from getting sick, so you need to wear a mask because you could still get it. So Dr. Bellinson is hinting that we may be on lockdown until February. Some of the scientists are saying that it may go on another year. Fauci is saying that. They have no intention of releasing this. No. They will finish when our middle class, when our people are decimated, and the only thing left is to rely on the government and stand in food lines. There's no mask coming off. There's no vaccine cure.
I'm hearing from Bill Gates, you know, I always take virology information at a premium from a billionaire who started software because that makes him certainly the most verifiable.
I have the same medical degree as him, you know.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. And now he's saying...
I have none.
Yeah. And he's saying, listen up, folks. He's saying, 2022.
Yep.
I'm thinking 2022. How long are you going to put up with this, folks? Statistics, science. That's what they're about, they say. But are they really? When they themselves violate their own rules, what that tells me is they're not taking this seriously. Why should we? Gabrielle Ingram, thank you very much for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
I greatly appreciate it. And if anything, we'll continue to contact each other. We've given each other our cell phone numbers. So if anything comes up, I always want to have you back. If there's more information, you just want to chat, whatever. You are an astounding resource speaking for people that, for whatever reason, can't speak for themselves or won't speak for themselves, and you'll speak for them anyway. So thank you ever so kindly for doing what you do, madam.
You are welcome. Thank you.
All right, that was Gabrielle Ingram. Thank you. We'll soldier right on, right after this. First, I got to tell you where you are.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
As per normal, her interview was fabulous, and I said before, anytime she wants to come on here and talk about this, or hell, I don't care, anything, she's a great speaker, I invite her back. I know, I'm 5 minutes into overtime. 2 hours, 5 minutes. The next video is 8.5 minutes, 9 minutes. I'm not going to interrupt it at all. God, okay. I'm told in chat that I have to go to heyjackass.com. I have to do what I customarily do. Okay. I wasn't planning to do this, but I guess some people get a kick. Well, I do too, because it's so cynical. Okay. All right. Okay, I'm going to do this, then I'll go to the video.
The bloviating Zeppelins, HeyJackass.com Chicago death toll update. Courtesy of Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot.
That's right, folks. You can go to HeyJackass.com. HeyJackass.com to get these great stats. You want stats? Here's stats. HeyJackass.com. Illustrating Chicago values. Aided and abetted by the lovely and glowing Mayor Lori Lightfoot there in Chicago. So, HeyJackass.com, December to date, shot and killed 22, shot and wounded 113, total shot 135, total homicides 26. Week in progress, December the 13th to December the 19th, shot and killed 4, shot and wounded 27, total shot 31. Total homicides, 5. I don't know. You guys are slacking. Year to date, shot and killed 688. Shot and wounded 3,356. Total shot 4,044. Total homicides for the lovely city, I almost said shitty of Chicago. I would be right with both ways. City of Chicago, total homicides, 759. So, the shot clock, the 2020 Chicago shot clock, says this. A person is shot every 2 minutes and 5 seconds. A person is murdered every 11 minutes and 8 seconds. HeyJackass.com, illustrating Chicago values. See, who says I don't respond? Okay, I'm going to play this video. I'm not going to make any commentary until the end, and then I will allow you to make the decision. There's so much more I would have gone over tonight, but once I saw this video, I backed it up because I'm guessing I didn't put it out on social media because I sussed out that once I did, it would disappear. And I've managed to capture it because my wife knows how to use Camtasia, and I don't. So I'm just going to play this video. I was astounded. I'll let you be astounded, and then you process this over the weekend. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, where's the audio on this? Hang on. I'm going to have to bring this back. Okay. Now, let's try the audio on this.
Why they did not, I know what's in the Durham report, and I'm going to say it here. I bribed Hillary Clinton $18 million. I facilitated a bribe for Hillary Clinton on January 14th, 2016, right here in this town. On behalf of the FBI, they came to me around December 1st, 2015. They told me Hillary Clinton had accepted a bribe.
Who is this? I'll just say this. This is a man named Patrick Byrne, Byrne. Patrick Byrne. As a matter of fact, let me go to the beginning again and play it in full. Patrick Byrne, Byrne.
Why they did not, I know what's in the Durham report, and I'm going to say it here. I bribed Hillary Clinton $18 million. I facilitated a bribe for Hillary Clinton on January 14th, 2016, right here in this town. On behalf of the FBI, they came to me around December 1st, 2015. They told me Hillary Clinton had accepted a bribe from Turkey for $20 million. They told me that I would be working for a group in New York, FBI agents, who had authorization to set Hillary Clinton up in a sting. They asked me to facilitate a bribe for her, an $18 million bribe from another government. The bagman from that other government was, I was to befriend, and I was to get that person 10 minutes alone in a room with Hillary Clinton. I did. On January 14th, 2016, Hillary Clinton was in this town, and she met in a way that was kept off her schedule. She accepted an $18 million bribe. But General Barr knows this. This is the Durham. They know this was what is behind it all. And I'll even tell you, I'm going to drop one more thing. I've been waiting to say this publicly, and this is what really happened. I will tell you, if you hear this and you give me 90 seconds, your viewers will understand what's happened in the last 5 years in America. I've been waiting to say this on mainstream TV, and they will not have me back because once they understood what this was about. I had Hillary Clinton. I caused Hillary Clinton. I facilitated a bribe, and she took a second bribe for $18 million. And I worked with the FBI as I did that. They're deeply involved in this. They came to me 3 days later and told me I had to forget about it and forget that it ever happened. And I said, "What are you talking about?" And they gave me one excuse. They said, Hillary's going to win, and it's been determined, it's been decided upstairs, nothing's going to be able to stop that now. So she's going to win, and she's going to send her people over to the FBI and ask who was part of investigating Hillary, and any of us who were part of it are going to be destroyed, and that includes you too, Patrick. And so this mission has been scrubbed from the highest level. And I thought about that, and I said, yes, sir, and I came, but 2 or 3 weeks later, I was back with 3 federal agents this time. 3 federal agents, and I let them know that wasn't sitting, and this is in Salt Lake City, Utah, and that wasn't sitting well with me, and I'd like to know why we had almost a year before the election. They could have had me and another person in front of a grand jury in a week and gotten her indicted. And they told me, and this is the key to understanding what's happened in America. They told me, this is word for word, Patrick, what's really going on is this. President Obama has his people across the federal bureaucracy at this point, but especially the Department of Justice. Hillary Clinton is going to be president for 8 years, and nothing's going to change that. But think of there being a Bunsen burner within the Department of Justice. That evidence about the 2 bribes you were part of gathering is going to be sitting on the Bunsen burner. And the hand on the Bunsen burner is going to be one of Barack Obama's people. If Hillary's a good girl and defends Obamacare, that flame stays low. If she's a bad girl and thinks for herself, it's going to get turned up high. That way, Barack Obama is going to manage Hillary Clinton for the 8 years she's president, and then she's going to step down, and Michelle's going to run. And Patrick, that's the plan. That came out of the lips of a federal agent. It was confirmed to me this spring. The Durham investigation that plan was called the Operation Snow Globe. That was Brendan Obama's name for it. Snow Globe, they were trying to get Hillary to step into a snow globe. I'm looking for a prop. A snow globe that anytime they wanted, they could then pick up and shake for 8 years. My bribe was the bait to get her to step into the snow globe. That's all from it. This isn't a theory. I'm the guy in the room. I'm acknowledging I took part in all this, and I thought I was helping them conduct federal law enforcement. It turned out that I was helping them set up Hillary Clinton for a deep state to control her. And that's why, and I came in public a year ago with some pictures that showed me with this Russian redhead, Maria Butina, lovely woman, that said, and so I'm saying this entire thing, this last 5 years, has been a coup. It was from Obama against Hillary, that when Trump won in a fluke, it got morphed into the Russian collusion delusion. And I say that as the guy they had romancing Maria and bribing Hillary Clinton. So I'm about as involved in this as you can get, and I promise you that's exactly what happened. And what we're seeing here is the last act play out. I was the last act play out. And the reason I mentioned that I knew in October 2018 that this was going to happen was because in 2018 I was offered, a federal agent came to tell me, Patrick, you need to understand there are billionaires walking around this world that we made, and we're prepared to do the same for you. You just have to stay calm. You just have to stay quiet through the election. And by that election, I knew he meant 2020 election. So I've known that they were going to hijack this election since October of 2018.
Does the Federal Bureau of Investigation and other departments need to be completely detonated, dismantled?
Well, I think what you need to do is there was a guy, the CEO of, I forget if it was Allstate or State Farm, decades ago. It was based in, which one of those is based in Chicago? Do you know?
State Farm is Chicago.
State Farm then. They had a big headquarters filled with 10,000 people, bureaucracy. And the CEO bought a cornfield a couple 100 miles away, and he built a building for 500 people, and he started moving people to it, and until he got a new mini headquarters, and then he just shut off the original one. That's sometimes bureaucracies get so big and so bad, that's the only way to fix them. The way to fix them is to hit them in the head, is to start again and build an alternative and then just shoot them in the head. The bureaucracy in the head, and I think that's the only way that's going to be to fix our our FBI, our beloved FBI. I have such respect. I grew up with this, revering the FBI, and I still revere, the men and women in it up to the mid-level. And there are people beyond that who are good. You can't throw the baby out with the bath water, but they are systemically corrupted at this point. So that story I just told you is absolutely the truth. There was a bribe from Turkey, a $20 million bribe in the fall of 2015 to Hillary, and then they had me arrange another bribe for $18 million from a different government, which I'm not disclosing the name of that other government. And that's I think what the start of this coup really is.
Do you believe she's going to be held accountable at some point for this? Assuming President Trump is reelected for the next.
Well, if he is elected again, if he does get through this, and I think that's a high. They were trying to demoralize people and make people think there's no chance of that. I think there's a high it's quite a conceivable outcome to me that he is the president on January 21st. And again, I'm not saying that as a guy who voted for him. I'm saying it as a guy who cares about the country, and I do not want to see it hijacked. If we go down on this. If we go down to this assassin's maze, it's our last free election. I lived in China, 83, 84. I speak Chinese. I've lived in Maoist China. It was right after the Cultural Revolution. And that's what's coming for us. And I think this is our last real election. We'll have, this stuff was built in Venezuela so that Hugo Chavez could get through the referendum of 2003. And that's the basic architecture of the software of Smartmatic. And it has now become the core of two of the major commercial systems offered for sale in the United States. And Venezuela hasn't really had an honest election in 20 years. People are starving, and the government still wins its election. It's because it's all crooked. The software that lets them do that is the software that's in the heart of our systems. If we bend a knee to this, it could be 1,000 years of darkness, and the world knows that. People don't understand, and because it's fashionable maybe not to be anti-American or not to love your country. They don't understand how the world looks to us, and if we bend a knee to this, it's a darkness comes over the world, and we don't know if it'll be 1,000 years before it's lifted.
Was that not astounding? If this country falls, the rest of the planet goes with it. Make no mistake.
Monsieur! It can work!
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelins Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network. If you want to contact me, you can find me on Twitter at BZEP, at BZEP. I am really, really, really active there because they have basically screwed with me the least. Facebook, not so much. Promotional consideration is by the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, and also by the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And also by Pratt & Whitney Engines, Thrust, that I know you can trust. And also, by the way, I need to give thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team, with whom I'll be conjoining with in less than an hour. Oh, and thanks to Sackhead Sean for giving me a bottle of Kettle One. That's right. So, folks, thanks to Michael Jones, thanks to Gabrielle Ingram, thanks to you for listening. Can you believe that video? God bless, take care, be safe, have a great weekend.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben. Good night, everyone.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.